Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my 2022 Dynasty Fantasy Football running back rankings. Inside of today's video, I'll be going in depth into my top 12 ranked running backs for the 2022 Dynasty Fantasy Football season, as well as explaining into why I have them ranked at each and every single spot inside the top 12. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask, if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, to please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure to leave a like on today's video. It would help us out a ton. And if you would like to follow me on Twitter, please do so at Notorious FNTSY. So without further ado, let's get into my 2022 Dynasty Fantasy Football running back rankings. Now, at the number one overall spot here in Dynasty Fantasy Football running back rankings, I feel like there is a clear, set in stone number one running back. In the wide receiver video I made last week, there was really a debate, in my opinion, between who the number one wide receiver would be if you're in a 2022 Dynasty startup draft right now. I think some people might make the argument that, hey, I want to go Justin Jefferson here. Other people would argue that they want to go ahead and take Jamar Chase as the number one wide receiver off the board, and I understand that that is going to be a debate that a lot of people are going to have. But at running back, it seems like it's basically cemented in for most people, 99% of people, that Jonathan Taylor should be the number one running back taken in Dynasty Fantasy Football drafts in 2022. Jonathan Taylor is currently 23.1 years old and plays for the Indianapolis Colts. So in 2021, he actually ended up playing in all 17 games, finishing as the number one running back in half PPR, and he was the running back number 2 in half PPR points per game. Now, the reason that I'm going to be making this distinction in basically all videos between half PPR finish on the year and half PPR points per game is because the points per game number is very important in telling the tale on how the season works, because you can finish very high at the end of the season, be the number one running back, or most of the time, right, to be the number one running back, you have to be really fucking good. But maybe you're running back 13, and the reason why you were running back number 13 is not because you had this amazing season, it's because you played 16, 17 games, and the guys that played 12, 13 games that were better than the other running back, right? They were much better, but they played less games, that they finished lower down. So that's why I make this big distinction between half PPR finish and half PPR points per game, because I think that the points per game number is what you are really looking for in terms of drafting players. So again, running back 1 in half PPR, running back number 2 in half PPR points per game. Last year, Jonathan Taylor had 332 carries, 19.5 per game, ranking number 1 at running back, 1,811 rushing yards, 106.5 per game, ranking yet again number 1 at running back. He had 53 targets on the season, 3.1 per game, ranking 17th at running back, 40 receptions, 2.4 per game, ranking 21st at running back, 360 receiving yards, 21.2 per game, ranking 13th at running back, and 20 total touchdowns, number 1 at the running back category. So in terms of a running back for fantasy football, Jonathan Taylor is never going to be, at least in my mind, a running back like Austin Ekeler, like Alvin Kamara, like Najee Harris, who are going to be seeing, like Christian McCaffrey, these running backs that are going to be seeing a zillion targets game in and game out. Now, does that mean that Jonathan Taylor has fucking stone hands or something and can't catch the football? No, that's not what it means, but it's not really a big focal point in the game plan to give Jonathan Taylor a bunch of dump-offs every single game. Now, maybe that will be a part of the game plan going forward, but it just doesn't seem like he's going to go from 50 to 80, 90 targets next season, right? That seems pretty, out there to say that. So I think maybe 50, 60 targets at the high end for Jonathan Taylor should be what we expect. And even with that, even with him just getting 50, 60 targets, he's still a running back that is just going to do so much when they hand him the ball that it almost doesn't matter at all how much he's involved in the receiving game. So Jonathan Taylor is my number 1 running back in Dynasty Fantasy Football. If you guys want to make the argument down below in the comment section that maybe like a different running back ahead of Jonathan Taylor, I'd love to see that. But personally, Jonathan Taylor is my number 1 guy. I think this guy is going to be very successful next season and in the future. Even though it seems like the quarterback situation in Indianapolis doesn't seem like it's going to be Carson Wentz next year, I think Jonathan Taylor will be just fine. At number 2, we have Najee Harris, running back of the Pittsburgh Steelers, currently 24 years old. Very funny, because Najee Harris was a rookie last year, and that was Jonathan Taylor's second season in the NFL. So in 2021, in all 17 games, just like Jonathan Taylor, he finished as the running back number 4 in half PPR and the running back number 9 39 in half PPR points per game, 307 carries, 18.1 per game, ranking second at running back. He had a grand total of 1,200 rushing yards, 70.6 per game, ranking fourth at running back, 94 targets, 5.5 per game, ranking number one at running back, 74 receptions, 4.4 per game, ranking number one at running back, 467 receiving yards, 27.5 per game, ranking third at running back, and 10 total touchdowns, ranking eighth at the running back position. Now, the funniest thing about Najee Harris's numbers is that if I was to have asked you before I made this video which running back had the most targets as well as the most receptions last season, I don't think most people would have said Najee Harris, so that is a very good stat to kind of go ahead and bring up. Big Ben does love dumping the ball off to running backs. Big Ben is basically gone, right? There's probably like a 0% chance that he ends up coming back in 2022. Now, the quarterback situation in Pittsburgh is very dicey, right? Mason Rudolph is fucking atrocious. I don't think Mason Rudolph's going to be the quarterback. Will they end up drafting a quarterback? Maybe Aaron Rodgers goes there. Who knows? But if Najee Harris was able to perform with Big Ben on his last leg, right? The guy was basically useless at the quarterback position last year. I think that Najee Harris will continue to flourish even if the quarterback is Mason Rudolph, but I don't think that's a very high probability. So I think Najee Harris is going to have yet another great season in 2022. His second year in the NFL, I think he's going to be able to play even stronger. 17 games, obviously a good thing to note. There's obviously going to be fluke injuries for these running backs. Najee Harris was able to stay healthy in 2021. If he's able to do that in 2022, would not be surprised if he was the number one overall running back in fantasy football at the end of the season. Next up, we move to DeAndre Swift, running back of the Detroit Lions, 23.1 years old. In 2021, he played in 13 games, was the running back 19 in half PPR and the running back 13 in half PPR points per game. He had 151 carries on the season, 11.6 per game, ranking 30th at running back, 617 rushing yards, 47.5 per game, ranking 30th at running back, 78 targets, 6.0 per game, ranking 4th at running back, 62 receptions, 4.8 per game, number 4 at running back, 452 receiving yards, 34.8 per game, 5th at running back, and 7 total tugs, ranking 21st at the running back position. So DeAndre Swift, a little bit different than the other running backs. Now I know that I just talked about how good Najee Harris was at catching the football, but Najee Harris also saw over 300 carries last season with 307. I understand that DeAndre Swift only played in 13 games, but seeing him get 300 carries in 2022 seems very unlikely. Now, this is a Detroit Lions team that is probably still going to be pretty bad, right? I don't expect the Detroit Lions to go from a team that won just a couple of games that was really scratching and clawing to just win a game last season, and they're going to go out there and win 7-8 games next year. I don't think so. But I do think that Dan Campbell is a much better coach than what the record shows, right? Because he was really trying to win these games. He was going full out for this team, and I like that Dan Campbell is the coach of the Detroit Lions. Quarterback situation here, also a little bit dicey. Is it going to be Jared Goff? Are they going to draft someone? Are they going to bring someone in? Is it going to be Jared Goff maybe half the season, then they pull him out halfway through? For a rookie quarterback, who really knows what is going to happen? But what I do know is that DeAndre Swift is an excellent, a chef's kiss, man, you freak, receiving running back. This guy is excellent at that. And when you give him the ball, you're going to give him 10, 11, 12 carries a game, and he is going to be able to put up numbers doing that as well. So DeAndre Swift, very young. I understand some people, they're scared. They get scared. They wet their pants a little bit when they're on the board and they have to draft a running back. They have to draft any fucking player that is on a team that is as bad as the Detroit Lions. But I will tell you right now that you should be very confident in drafting DeAndre Swift, just like I would be. So DeAndre Swift is my number 3 overall running back in my Dynasty running back rankings for 2022. But before we got into running back number 4, I'd like to let you guys know that our sponsor, UnderDog Fantasy, is known for their NFL best ball tournaments. However, UnderDog doesn't stop there. UnderDog has plenty of other contests for you guys to compete in, including live draft contests and pick'em, which you guys can make up to 20 times your entry. Use promo code Awesemo to get a first match deposit bonus of up to $100 and get started on UnderDog Fantasy today. So make sure you guys do check out UnderDog Fantasy. Again, promo code Awesemo for a up to $100 deposit bonus match. So back on into the video, we move to running back number 4, and that is Javonte Williams, running back of the Denver Broncos, 21.8 years old. Javonte Williams is actually younger than me. I'm turning 23 in May. So Javonte Williams, you know, he's doing a lot with his life. So am I. Obviously, I'm here talking about fantasy football, here talking about Javonte Williams. So I'd say both of our lives went in the correct direction. So in 2021, Javonte played in 17 games, but he wasn't really the starter in these games because Melvin Gordon was the guy. Now, the reason why Javonte Williams is my running back number 4 is because I believe that Melvin Gordon is going to get kicked out of town. Now, do I think that Melvin Gordon is some type of schlub running back, that this guy absolutely sucks, and that's why they need to kick him out of town? No, I actually think Melvin Gordon is a pretty solid running back, and on a lot of teams, he would be their number 1 running back, just like he was on Denver last season. But I do believe that in order for Javonte Williams to really succeed, to finish inside the top 5, to finish inside the top 10, to potentially be the number 1 running back in fantasy football in 2022, then Melvin Gordon just has to be gone. They can't have this 1-2, 1A, 1B running back system there. That just doesn't fucking work for fantasy football. It works in real life, doesn't work for fantasy football. My expectation, based upon everything that I've read all over the interwebs, is that Melvin Gordon will be gone. So running back 17.5 PPR for Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams, running back number 28 in half PPR points per game, tied with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. 203 carries, 11.9 per game, ranking 15th at running back. 903 rushing yards, 53.1 per game, ranking 13th at running back. 53 targets, 3.1 per game, 17th at running back. 43 receptions, 2.5 per game, 13th at running back. 316 receiving yards, 18.6 per game, 18th at running back. And 7 total tugs, 21st at running back. So none of those numbers are going to make you salivate. They're not going to make you super excited to draft Javonte Williams. But what will make you excited is if you just watch some of the tape from last year. When you see that this guy is given the correct amount of carries, this guy can put the Denver Broncos on his fucking back. It doesn't matter if Teddy Bridgewater sucks. Doesn't matter if Drew Lock sucks. Doesn't matter about the quarterback situation. Javonte Williams is a legitimate workhorse running back in the NFL, and I believe he will actually be given this opportunity in 2022 to be the workhorse guy there in Denver. That's why I like him so much in 2022 and beyond. Next up at number 5, we start to get a little bit older here. 26.8 years old for Austin Ekeler. What an old-ass man, right? 26.8 years old. So Austin Ekeler, running back of the LA Chargers in 2021, he played in 16 games. I believe the reason why he missed one of those games was because he had COVID, and his backup running back went to Pound Town, which pretty much should tell you that the Chargers, maybe Austin Ekeler isn't this amazing running back, which I think he is, but the system there in LA for the running back is just tremendous. Again, not trying to discredit Austin Ekeler. He is my personal favorite running back in the NFL. Finished as running back number 2 in half PPR last year, and the running back number 3 in half PPR points per game, having 206 carries, 12.9 per game, ranking 14th at running back, 911 rushing yards, 56.9 per game, ranking 12th at running back. Now, Austin Ekeler is also one of those running backs, kind of a DeAndre Swift type, that isn't necessarily just going to see this crazy amount of carries. Ekeler, maybe he could get 300 carries, but maybe that wouldn't necessarily help the team because that would put him at much more of an injury risk. So they'd much rather have Austin Ekeler catch 70 receptions, 4.4 per game, ranking number 2 at running back, having 94 targets, 5.9 per game, ranking number 1 at running back, 647 receiving yards, 40.4 per game, ranking number 1 at running back, and 20 total touchdowns, ranking number 1 at running back. Austin Ekeler is a key piece in this team, and this is an LA Chargers team, but Nick, they didn't make the playoffs last year. In my opinion, they are still a very good team, and Austin Ekeler is a legitimate, might be the focal point of this offense. I understand that Mike Williams may be gone, that maybe you might want to make the argument that, hey, Nick, I think Keenan Allen's the focal point. I don't even think that's true. I really do believe that Austin Ekeler is the key piece in this offense. Justin Herbert loves dumping the ball off his way, and I see for the next couple of years, Austin Ekeler could easily be the number 1 running back in fantasy football. I understand, Nick, you've said that for every single fucking running back here, and there's a reason why they're in the top 5, because I can see that in their future. So Austin Ekeler, a little bit older, kind of getting him the bump down, but I wouldn't be surprised if you personally in the comment section would have wanted to rank Austin Ekeler ahead of DeAndre Swift as the number 3 running back. I wouldn't mind that at all. I don't think there's some type of huge jump or some type of huge drop off when you're going from Swift to Austin Ekeler. At number 6, this is probably going to be my most controversial ranking, and that is Christian McCaffrey, CMC of the Carolina Panthers, 25.7 years old. I'm at number 6. Some people might still put him inside the top 3. Some people might rank him as the number 1 guy. Because when this man is healthy, he is by far and away the best running back, maybe not in the NFL, but in terms of fantasy football, because this guy basically plays fucking receiver and running back at the exact same time. Running back number 39 in half PPR, running back number 8 in half PPR points per game, 7 games played. The classic scenario of why you want to talk about half PPR points per game, because if McCaffrey was healthy, he would have been a top 8 running back. But in reality, if he was really healthy and wasn't missing parts of games because he was getting hurt, he could have been the number 1 running back in fantasy football, and that's what brings so much controversy towards ranking him, because he's been hurt for the last 2 years in a row. And again, I say this in a lot of videos, I'm basically as much of a doctor as Johnny Sins, so I'm not some type of doctor, right? But when I see trends of you're missing all this time, it starts to concern me. It really does. 99 carries last year, 14.1 per game, 51st at running back, 442 rushing yards, 63.1 per game, 47th at running back, 41 targets, 5.9 per game, 37 receptions, 5.3 per game, 343 receiving yards, 49 per game, ranking 15th at running back. So even in just 7 games, still was top 15 in running back receiving yards. He had 2 total touchdowns, number 61 at running back. Now, there is no doubt in my mind that if Christian McCaffrey is able to stay healthy in 2022 and onward, that he could be the number 1 running back, and I mean the number 1 running back, meaning that he lays a pipe to the other running backs below him, that he is just by far and away the clear best running back in fantasy football. That would not surprise me at all. But it also wouldn't surprise me to see McCaffrey miss some more time, so that's why I have him ranked as my running back 6. I mean, call me a fucking dumbass if you want in the comment section, but I get a little bit worried when guys keep getting hurt. At number 7, we have Derrick Henry, running back of the Tennessee Titans, 28.1 years old. So when it comes to Derrick Henry, last year, he was unstoppable. He played in 8 games, running back 16 half PPR. He was the number 1 running back in half PPR points per game. This man probably would have rushed for over 2,000 yards. And if he didn't get over 2,000 yards, he probably would have had 1,950 yards, something like that. So he had 219 carries, 27.4 per game. This motherfucker played in 8 games. He played in less than half the games, and he had 219 carries. He would have had over 400 carries. Number 10 at running back. Number 10 at running back, just playing 8 games. 937 rushing yards. 117.1 per game. Number 9 at running back. Number 9 at running back, playing in just 8 games. Almost 1,000 rushing yards. Now, he's one of those guys where you might want to actually make the argument that this guy's fucking stone hands, but they did increase the targets a little bit. 20 targets, 2.5 per game, 18 receptions, 2.3 per game. Didn't do too much in the receiving yard category, and he had 10 total touchdowns on the season. Number 8 at running back. So even in just 8 games, this guy was basically, you were like Yoda, and he was Luke Skywalker from the movies. You know, when Yoda's on his back, when he's trading him, that's basically what was happening. Derrick Henry put the team on his back. Now, I understand, but Nick, he's 28 years old. But Nick, he's close to 30. But Nick, he got hurt last year. But Nick, there's too much tread on the tires. If you look back at his college days, he wasn't this workhorse running back at Alabama. He wasn't the guy he's been for the last 2-3 years in the NFL. So I think there's still a lot of tread left on the tires, and I think he could still be a top-end running back going forward. The age a little bit concerning. Eventually, it just happens. It could just happen out of nowhere. Now, I know a lot of people, Tom Brady never fell off. This man retired, and he's still amazing. But Derrick Henry, things could all go down very fast. Everything could go sour very quickly, so I understand the risk in drafting him, but personally, I think he still has another year or 2 as maybe a top 5 running back in fantasy football. So next up at number 8, we move to Dalvin Cook, running back of the Minnesota Vikings, 26.5 years old. In 2021, he played in 13 games. Now, with Dalvin Cook, you can kind of make a similar argument to with Christian McCaffrey. Dalvin Cook cannot stay healthy. Dalvin Cook is very unlikely, in my opinion. I would almost bet a crazy amount of money that Dalvin Cook will not finish the 2022 season playing 17 games. Now, does that mean I think he's going to play like 8 games? No. I think he's probably going to play 14, 15 games on the year, miss a couple of games. And it is what it is, right? Because when the guy is healthy, he's a top 12 fantasy running back. Running back number 15 half PPR. Running back number 11 in half PPR points per game. 249 carries, 19.2 per game, ranking 5th at running back. 1,159 rushing yards, 89.2 per game, ranking 5th at running back. 49 targets, 3.8 per game, 26th at running back. 34 receptions, 2.6 per game, 30th at running back. 224 receiving yards, 17.4 per game, ranking 37th at running back. And 6 total touchdowns, number 27 at running back. That touchdown total is very low compared to which you would think it would be, but I do expect that to bounce back in 2022. The situation in Minnesota at the quarterback, I think Kirk Cousins is good. I think he's a fine quarterback, but there's a chance that it isn't Kirk Cousins, maybe 2023 and onward. Maybe Kirk Cousins gets traded this year. I don't really think so, though. Dalvin Cook is one of those running backs that it really is a system running back play. Now, does that mean I think Dalvin Cook sucks? Of course not. You put Dalvin Cook on another team, he's probably going to be amazing. But what I mean is that when Dalvin Cook goes down, if you have Alexander Mattison, you're not really pissed off, right? Because you're just like, oh, you know what? Let me slot Alexander Mattison. Of course, Alexander Mattison isn't as good as Dalvin Cook, but he's going to do just enough to where it's like, oh, it wasn't a huge blow that you lost Dalvin Cook. So I recommend if you're doing a draft and you draft Dalvin Cook, whether this is redraft, dynasty like we're talking about right now, make sure you have Alexander Mattison, because then you don't have to worry at all about the injury proneness of Dalvin Cook, whether there is or isn't injury proneness in your mind. You don't have to worry at all, because then you just have Alexander Mattison, you throw him in, and you have a slightly worse version of Dalvin Cook. So Dalvin Cook, again, the injury concerns are there, but if you draft Alexander Mattison, you are going to be just fine. At number 9, we have Alvin Kamara, running back of the New Orleans Saints, 26.6 years old. All that shit went down in Vegas after the Pro Bowl. Should be fine to play this year, so I'm not really too worried about that. If something came out that he was going to get suspended or something, then in terms of dynasty, I wouldn't really move him down my rankings, but in terms of redraft, I definitely would. Last year, Alvin Kamara in 2021 played in 13 games, finishing as the running back 8.5 PPR and the running back number 5.5 PPR points per game, having 240 carries, 18.5 per game, ranking 6th at running back, 898 rushing yards, 69.1 per game, 0.1 less, you get 69, very nice. I like, very nice. My name is Borat, number 14 at running back, 67 targets, 2 off of 69. Number 6 at running back, 47 receptions. Number 9 at running back, 439 receiving yards. Number 7 at running back, 9 total tugs. Number 14 at running back, Alvin Kamara. Another one of those running backs where the quarterback situation there, in my opinion, drastically changes how I view Alvin Kamara. Now I'm sitting here on March 7th talking right now. And right now, could be Jameis, could be Taysom Hill, could be some rookie quarterback, could be Ian Book. I'm just fucking kidding. It's not going to be Ian Book. The page has turned out Ian Book's NFL career. That was a terrible joke, but yeah. Ian Book's not good. I probably didn't even have to explain that to you. You already know that. Ian Book sucks, but the quarterback situation there, if it's Taysom Hill, I hate Alvin Kamara, because Taysom Hill likes to smack on his chest, take the ball himself, call his own number, run in a touchdown. Instead of dumping it off to Alvin Kamara, he'd rather run the ball. That's just what he does. But if it's Jameis, if it's someone else, then Alvin Kamara does have a very high ceiling in terms of fantasy football. Only 26.6 years old. Seems to have a pretty solid workload to where he doesn't get too many carries to where I'm super worried about him getting injured. But he isn't just getting like 150 carries, which is going to potentially hurt him in terms of his finish at the end of the season. Does get a lot of targets as well, especially if Taysom Hill isn't the quarterback. I think he could easily get over 100 targets in 2022. Next up at number 10, we move to 9-inch Nicholas Chubb, running back of the Cleveland Browns, 26.2 years old in 2021. He played in 14 games. Now, the scenario when it comes to Nick Chubb is pretty funny, because in real life, NFL, you could easily make the argument that Nick Chubb is a top 5 running back, right? He has the skill set, he's big, he can knock motherfuckers over, he can run right through you, he plays well. But in terms of fantasy football, the targets are never going to be there, and the problem is he's not like Derrick Henry, where he's going to see that many carries to where he can overcome that, like Jonathan Taylor, where even if he doesn't see 50, 60, 70, 80 targets, he'll be just fine. Nick Chubb doesn't have that because Kareem Hunt is still there. But Kareem Hunt could be gone after next year. I agree, he could be, but they could also bring him back, because I'm just not too sure what the market is for Kareem Hunt. So if they're able to retain Kareem Hunt on not a super expensive deal and have that 1-2 punch of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, why wouldn't you want that, right? It's an excellent running back duo. Nick Chubb is the hard hitter, the bruiser type of back, and then Kareem Hunt's the pass catching back who can also run in between the tackles very effectively. So Nick Chubb's scenario, there's definitely the most not really confusion around it, because you know exactly, like, you could see it from a fucking mile away. You don't need some type of microscope to inspect this scenario. You know what's going to be happening. But since you know what's going to be happening, the scenario just isn't perfect. It's just not, he's not just a workhorse running back there is kind of what I'm getting to. So 2021, again, 14 games played, running back 11.5 PPR, running back 10.5 PPR points per game, 228 carries, 8th at running back, 16.3 per game, 1,259 rushing yards, number 2 at running back, 89.9 per game. In terms of targets, 25 targets, 1.8 per game, 54th at running back, 20 receptions, 1.4 per game, 55th at running back, 174 receiving yards, 12.4 per game, 47th at running back, and 9 total touchdowns, 14th at running back. And the thing is, when Kareem Hunt gets hurt, people think, oh, when Kareem Hunt goes down, if he was to get hurt, then Nick Chubb is just going to be fantastic for fantasy football. And it's basically the exact same thing, because they're going to use another running back behind him. It's not just going to become the Nick Chubb show. So even when Kareem Hunt is gone in the future, potentially, then Nick Chubb still, to me, probably won't ever be that top 5, maybe the number 1 running back in fantasy football. But you still got to rank him inside the top 10, the top 12, because he's just so talented at running the football. Moving to number 11, if you guys have ended up enjoying thus far, again, please make sure that if you are going to use UnderDog, to make sure you use promo code Awesemo for up to a $100 first match deposit bonus. Again, promo code Awesemo. And if you're not someone who loves best ball, you can still be doing the pick'ems, which are NBA, MLB, if the MLB season eventually starts. So they basically have every single sport on there, NBA, NFL, all of that. So if you guys want to be making picks on there that are not best ball tournaments, then you can do that as well. So at number 11, we move to Cam Akers, running back of the LA Rams, 22.7 years old. Now in 2021, there's not too much to look at. He gets hurt, tears his Achilles, only plays in 1 game in the regular season because he tore his Achilles. You know, he comes back at the end of the season. This guy, I said this in the other video where I talked about him, but I really believe it's true. He's built like fucking Wolverine and was somehow able to come back and was a key piece. Now, he wasn't the same Cam Akers that you would have expected, but he wasn't shit. He was just, maybe came back a little early, but he was still fine. And they relied on him. Sean McVay, even the banged up version of Cam Akers, even the coming back from a torn Achilles version of Cam Akers, was the number 1 running back for them in the playoffs, in which they won the Super Bowl. In the playoffs, he was utilized as the lead back, so it should be very easy to see that Cam Akers' role is carved out in 2022, etched in stone as the lead workhorse running back in LA. Are they going to use Darrell Henderson? Are they going to potentially use other running backs? Yes, but Akers is the number 1 guy. During the 2020 season, he was the lead back. Now, it took a little bit of time. I'll admit, took him a while, but week 13 onward, we saw a lot of flashes of Cam Akers, and there's a reason why, if you drafted prior to him tearing his Achilles, why I and a lot of fantasy analysts were just in awe with drafting Cam Akers. At his ADP, I believe he was like an end of the first round pick, early second round pick. I loved him at that value. Obviously didn't pay off because he tore his fucking Achilles. But I think in 2022 and onward, as a young running back, this is his 3rd year in the NFL, I like Cam Akers a ton. Final running back to discuss in today's video is David Montgomery, running back of the Chicago Bears, 24.7 years old in 2021. He played in 13 games, running back 21.5 PPR, running back number 15 in half. He had 225 carries on the season, 17.3 per game, ranking 9th at running back, 849 rushing yards, 65.3 per game, ranking 17th at running back, 51 targets, 3.9 per game, ranking 23 at running back, 42 receptions, 16th at running back with 3.2 per game, 301 receiving yards, 23.2 per game, ranking 23rd at running back, 7 total touchdowns, number 21 at running back. Another running back that, and how many times has Nick said running back in this video? Probably a lot, right? Because this is a running back video. So that makes sense. But the reason why he's another one of these guys that just isn't going to get a lot of targets, they use other running backs to do that, and they don't really put a lot of focal point. The focal point of the offense doesn't seem to be Dave Montgomery, but maybe will be going forward. Maybe like in terms of receiving, because obviously he's the main running back there. Maybe it will be with the new head coach there, right? Maybe things are going to change with Eberflus as the head coach of the team. Maybe that does end up changing, but I don't necessarily, I wouldn't put that in the weather forecast of what's going to be happening for David Montgomery. But I think getting away from Matt Nagy's stupidity, just him being a bad coach, is going to really help out David Montgomery. Justin Fields is going to take that next step up, I believe, this season. Wasn't terrible in his rookie year, but didn't look like when you're watching the games, you're like, wow, that's why he was drafted this high, right? That's why they traded this pick to move up to get him, right? That's not what I saw, but I do think he's a good player. I think David Montgomery will be a little bit better this season. I think if the defense is able to play better then and the offense is good, then they're going to be able to run the ball a lot more later on in the games, leading to David Montgomery getting even more touches. Thank you guys all so much for watching today's video. Let me know if you liked my top 12. Was I missing a running back that you would have put inside the top 12? Let me know down below in the comment section. I love you guys all so much. Again, please make sure you guys check out UnderDog Fantasy. Promo code Awesemo to get a first deposit match bonus of up to $100. Get started on UnderDog Fantasy today. I love you guys all so much. I hope you guys have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, guys, bye.